I'm not saying money is not important. I love money. Of course, I want to have, a good life, stable, and be able to provide for my family. I'm not complaining about money. I'm complaining about lack of purpose. I'm complaining about lack of values. You know what I mean? Because if the goal is to keep up with the Joneses, thanks so much. I'm not up for that.
Welcome to the Bro Novo podcast, the podcast that models healthy communication for men, empowering them to start the journey of self-work. Now here's your host, Thomas Pierce.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Bro Novo podcast, where we model healthy communication for men. My guest this week is Pedro. He is a recording artist from Brasilia in Brazil, who lives in San Francisco. Peter's someone who has done a lot of thinking about his values and how to authentically live them out and the type of person he wants to be. He's a very deep thinker, and we had a long and wide-ranging conversation. This might be a good one to break up into two, but I left everything in there because I did find it valuable, and I know you will too. Enjoy the episode, and we'll see you next Thursday on the Bro Nouveau podcast. Peter, hello, my friend.
Hi. Hey, Thomas.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to hear you get your thoughts on record. And so you're the second in the musician series, which is very exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, but it was interesting too just to hear about before we were catching up, and you're kind of taking a new approach to your relationship to your music at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess to start, it sounds like you grew up in a musical household in some perspective. You said your father's side.
Yeah, my dad, he's a classical musician. He plays the lute. Lute is this instrument from Baroque era. It's European, Arabic. It's from the 14th, 15th century. Meaning my dad is a character. He's definitely very peculiar because of his musical interests. My dad is a classical musician, and our relationship has been centered around music. I wasn't raised by him. Mm-hmm. I was raised by my mom and stepfather. So, yeah. So my dad is a musician.
Yeah, cool. The lute. It sounds almost like a mystical thing. Absolutely. Like you'd hear about it like a medieval book or something.
and because I'm from Brasilia, Brazil's capital, and like there's no history of background. Like nobody. I mean, what I'm saying is, he created a course of lute. He's a musical teacher. So I actually respect my dad a lot because he was able to manifest what he intended. Like, if you think about Brazilian culture, we are not known for classical music, right? We're definitely not known for that. and so he was able to create his own world within his interests. And he has students that have moved on to like Europe, where they are still following the path of the lute. And yeah, I think but my biggest connection with my dad, it's on composition, songwriting. I have always showed him my musical creations.
Nice.
And because he's really good in giving me notes. And then you haven't asked that, but it's what I think of. For a long time, when I used to show him my musical ideas, he would want to teach me something, right? Oh, let me show you what you can do with this idea. But I'm like, Dad, I like funk music. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure like that. this language that you're
right, different languages.
So because his way of experiencing music, it's kind of like closing his eyes and being completely immersed, like in the listening. Versus I like moving my body when I'm
Right.
if I like this song, I'll be shaking my hips.
Yeah, Astral Jam.
Yeah, that's an example of its sensuality. Is it's about feeling good, also feeling good in touch with your body. I think that there's an opportunity to make a point here. I love music that is sensual, not sexual. Right. You can feel sexy, but it can be an individual experience. Like you close your eyes and you move your body, and that creates sort of a like feel good vibe.
Yes.
That's what I love about funk music. I think that it offers that possibility of connecting with your body and being sensual. I love that about funk music.
Same, dude.
Yeah, because even if you think about the way the word was created, it had to do with jazz jams, and then when the music got very sexy and funky, PHONKY, funky. So that's where it comes from. The funk, it's the feeling, it's the maybe spiritual elevation, maybe the joy that comes from feeling that beat repetition, and
so joyful. The groove.
Yes, for sure.
The groove, baby. Yeah, I grew up on funk music.
Really?
Yeah, interestingly, there was this album that my mom would always play called Pure Funk. It's a compilation album.
Oh my God, I would love Ricky James so much.
Yeah. And so we would listen to that, and we would go on these road trips to Ohio every summer. So I grew up in Philadelphia, in and around Philadelphia, and then we would go to Ohio, and my mom would play this Pure Funk album, and I didn't know like the history, like the Black culture and what it represents, and kind of the whole backstory and the evolution from jazz and the influences that all that stuff I've kind of learned about as an adult, but just the feeling of that really influenced me, man. And then I made a group of friends out here who are major fans of like a kind of a new wave funk band, like funk and soul kind of band. And I was like, why do I love this music so much? And then I realized it's because, well, one, it's great music, and two, because it is kind of what I grew up on, indirectly. Like it was a lot for me. It was a lot more like hard rock, like classic rock, American,
I see,
70s, 80s stuff. I heard a lot, but that stuck with me. And now I've kind of gone back and I listen to a lot of jazz now.
Oh,
and I have like I have two like major dreams as far as my self-development that I've had for years, and I've like kind of executed on them, but not entirely. Learning Spanish and playing piano again, because I grew up playing piano, and that's on my
these
list.
Are solid goals. The first one is a shared goal, also because like there is this. I'm from Brazil, right, and living in the US since 2012, so 9 years now and counting, and I had no idea that I was Latino. So I moved to LA. At the time, when I first moved to the US, I was living in LA, and I getting shocked with this information that, oh, I'm Latino, and I'm like, what does that mean? And so it's been, a goal of mine also to learn Spanish, because that's how I'm perceived in the US. People look at me and they assume I'm maybe Mexican, but then they hear my accent. Oh, maybe he's in Mexican, but what it is about him. And so,
but he's not white, basically.
Correct. And also because the way US looks at South America and Latin America it's this one whole thing. But like Brazil is a really big country, and we speak Portuguese, and so like to have to tell people that no, I actually, but the point I'm making is, the feeling of being Brazilian and not speaking Spanish in the US is like I'm out of the conversation because I'm told I'm Latino, but I don't speak the language.
Right.
So I'm like, what does that mean? And so
Yeah.
so I'm up for the learning Spanish goal there. Yeah.
All right. Good, man. Yeah.
I think it will help me understand what does it mean to be Latino in the US, which is actually, I'm super passionate about this topic. Because I think that the Latino community has an opportunity now to be represented in ways that it isn't. And so I get inspired by that, like to somehow learn how to support Latinos.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's interesting, man, because I would imagine growing up in Brazil, you're just Brazilian. You don't identify as Latino particularly because everyone's Brazilian in Brazil.
Exactly.
And then it probably, like, if you go over to or down to Chile or over to Ecuador or something, you're not like, hey guys, we're all Latinos, right? Like, you don't. It's only in the context of the U.S. where we are obsessed, like U.S. culture and like white people, consciously or unconsciously, are obsessed with this identity. And is it like, are you white or not? And no one ever says that, but that's the pervasive context we all live in.
Correct.
And it's interesting, like, to hear you say that and your experience of like, yeah, like only when I got here this was like forced in my face.
Yes. And was actually, it wasn't easy at first to see my sense of self-identity being challenged, because that's how I felt, because if I compare to who I was in Brazil, maybe I could risk saying that I had something close to white privilege because I come from, like, my grandparents did well. One was a doctor, the other was in real estate. So like I grew up as medium high class. I had access to good schools. And so I didn't grow up struggling. I didn't grow up as a minority. I didn't grow up having to prove myself, to prove my value. Like, because so fast forward to the experience of being Latino in the US, there is this message that I have to prove myself every day. My value doesn't come from my solely existence. Like, just to be here is not enough. I have to prove my worth. So in many jobs, I faced like this type of environment where maybe because of my accent or like there was some sort of barrier in between me and maybe the white status quo that wouldn't pay attention to what I'm saying just because I don't fit a specific criteria. So like whoever this guy, and so, and then I think I like the challenge to show that I'm maybe that I have thoughts, that I'm
intelligent,
that I'm mental capable, like that I'm intellectually capable of, like, so sure, it partially affected my self-esteem, but it also encouraged me to maybe like tap in my best self, right? Like, oh, so wait a second, if I have to prove myself here, how would I prove myself? And so I think the answer that I found was via self-development courses and things like that, like to really understand who I am before I commit to a meaning of who I am, meaning the outside understanding of who I am, right? I'm Latino. I am a minority. I am maybe different.
Well, you're a creative as well.
I am.
And sorry to cut you off or jump in.
No, I appreciate that.
Perhaps that fed into it because there's also this societal conditioning around, if you're a man and you wear creative outfits or you make music or you're expressive, maybe he's gay, or maybe there's something, you know what I mean?
He's feminine.
He's feminine.
He's sensitive.
All of these things. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, I take that as a compliment.
Hell yeah.
When that comes
Fuck
up.
yes, dude.
You know?
Same. Yeah.
Because like, I was raised by women, and I think that I developed very early on a sense of compassion to these women suffering that were raising me. So, like, my grandma had issues with her husband, my grandfather, and I was like 5 years old, and she would confess herself with me.
Jeez,
so,
that's a lot.
Yeah. So, like, I'm 5 years old, 6 years old, whatever, and I'm processing what's going on with my grandma, that it's not happy with my grandfather. So, I got very early on very attached to my first, like, my mom, my grandma, how they were doing emotionally. Because what I saw was that they would share themselves with me. They would show, their pain, their sadness, maybe their confusion, and then the man would show up and they would change. And that, since the beginning, was very confusing to me. So, like, my grandma is here, she's like, complaining about my grandfather, but then he gets home and she immediately starts pleasing him. And I'm like, wait a second, you complained about him the whole day, he gets home and you're cooking for him? Like, what the fuck? So yeah, so I think that, why do I take the compliment of being feminine or sensitive as a good thing? Because my understanding is that it helps me to read other people's emotions more, because I learned to see what they were actually feeling versus what they are showing. That led me to be more feminine. So I'm able, maybe, oh my God, I'm even afraid of saying that if somebody criticizes me for having said that, because I mean, it's just an opinion here, right? My opinion is that seeing these women that raised me hiding their emotions to maybe dedicate themselves to their marriages and to, an idea of what it should be. But I was very early on, like, aware that, wow, they're pretending they're fine, but they aren't. Like, they're hiding these, so I'm not sure if I'm being precise in what is it that makes me feminine here. And because, it's also not about gender. I think it's just like this ability to connect or observe what the other person is feeling. I think that I am very happy with having had this influence from these women in my life, my grandma and my mom, because to this date, I'm not sure if they're happy where they are at.
Right.
But
that's sad.
Yeah. But at the same time, that's their choice, right? And
for sure. Yeah, that gets into the boundaries and not letting someone else's life and their decisions seep into you. And yeah, I think I grew up in a house where the same thing was happening, but it wasn't as obvious, and I kind of internalized it. And
when you say what was happening?
Just the situation of where my mom and my dad both, I'm sure, were unhappy and things were not right, but they couldn't communicate it.
Oh.
And so it wasn't as clear cut, I think, especially, we're a bit apart in age. You're a bit older than me. In Brazil, from what I understand, this is, again, the whole American generalization of south of here, but a more machismo culture, a more traditional culture where, like that, those gender roles are stronger, right? Like woman would be expected to cook and clean. Like my house didn't have that really. Like it was more, a few generation on maybe from what you observed, but my parents split up, and I think the root of it was a very similar thing of like one or both of them not being okay and not communicating it and not having the skill set or the space, whatever happened. So yeah, I think that's something I can relate to. And
so let me see if I heard you. So that impacted you in ways because you could see that something was off.
Yes.
And so you became hypersensitive because nobody was telling you, but you were feeling it.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
I totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I grew up in a house where my sister put her foot down and spoke up and didn't let things go. If something was wrong, she named it and called it out, and she was a boss, dude. She was,
wow.
Yeah, she didn't give a fuck, and she continues to not give a fuck. I love you, Megan. Best friend always. And yeah, so I think I agree, man. So those experiences made me much more emotionally attuned, and I can be very unaware. I can be very selfish and have my shortcomings for sure. I think comparatively to people who didn't grow up in houses with women or kind of like empowered women, there's a difference in kind of like the men downstream that we grew up to be. And so that kind of coming full circle to the podcast was some of the inspiration behind it, was paint a picture and give role models to men about there are other options than men you can be. You can break this cycle. You don't have to form a household and repeat this.
I agree 100%. And in a way, I'm 39 years old now, and I am divorced. I'm single now, but I haven't felt ready to create a sense of family, in which I could practice, a new model of maybe more respectful or maybe more equal relationship. But yeah, I'm gonna take you on this on this comment. It's because I'm seeing something here that I want to comment, which is, so since I said I'm 39, there is this pressure that I should be married, that I should have kids, that I should have a house, that I should have, should. And well, I'm not there. I don't have kids, I'm yet figuring many things out in my life. And so in my experience, what I chose is my choices to develop myself until I mean, of course that we are always going to be working, right? But to me, it felt more responsible. It felt safer to choose to learn who I am, so I can step in a relationship and create a family. Also being able to hold space for my partner to be herself, or you know what I mean. So what I'm saying here is that I have resisted this pressure of settling and creating what I should create, a family, right? Because like I think that there is I put responsibility in me to develop myself so that I can show up to a relationship and expect that we're going to be something more evolved than what we are comparing that our parents did. I'm not sure if it was a choice per se, but it has been my experience. I have a challenge to grow inside relationships. I found, many times challenging to evolve from inside a relationship. And so that was my choice. Like, so let me take care of me, get to know who I am, because then I can come back here. And also what I'm saying is that I'm not sure if our parents had the choice. I'm not sure if they saw that as an option. Totally. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, what do you mean? I'm going to wait and take care of me. Wait, no, I have to, keep up with the Joneses type of thinking. I have to be like everyone else. And so I think that there's a new choice here. you know, and the choice I'm pointing out is this choice to get to know who you are, and develop yourself. And I haven't found the person yet, but I feel hopeful that this work will lead me to a relationship that will be different than the ones my parent had.
I know it will be different, dude.
Oh man!
After knowing you, I
I
think anyone who meets you one time would know that to
thank
their
you,
core.
Thomas. I appreciate that. Yeah,
of course, man. You care. You put in the work.
Yes, I am putting the work, and I guess that's not something that society values. You know, I guess society values, you know, maybe the car you drive, maybe the trips you take. But when it comes to the self-development work that you're doing, I don't think it's a value for society. I don't think that most people will tap you on the shoulder and will say, hey, Thomas, congrats for, you know, working on yourself. It's more like, oh, people are going to be congratulating you for a new job. They are going to be if you have a new relationship, you know. So the achievement of personal growth, even in this conversation I'm having with you, it helps me see the value here, you know, as in it's important, self-development, self-growth. These things are important. And not to say that it's the only path. But it has been the path that I found, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I agree with you that it's not necessarily valued. I think that it's valued, but kind of in a misguided way. You know, it'll be like society will value, say, somebody who has a really nice body, who works out, and they get validation for that. Oh, your abs look great, or oh, but that's so superficial and temporary. What I see and what I value if someone has that is the dedication, the discipline in their diet, the discipline to work out, the discipline to not drink, the discipline to stay off drugs. That, to me, is what we should value about somebody who has a nice body, not the physical manifestation.
Sure,
you know, like that is temporary. And I think what's impressive is if somebody has the discipline to do that. So same thing with maybe the equivalent as a musician would be like, oh, I love Peter's song. I love Peter Pedro's song. It makes me sing and dance and feel good. And I'm valuing kind of the creation, not the hard work and the hours and the songwriting, the composition, and all the work that I didn't see beforehand that created the song, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of where, you know, because like you can make a post on your social media right now and say everything you've been working on since the day I met you, you know, 14 months ago, and a summary, and people would be like impressed. They would congratulate you, you know, they would say good job because it's cool. But I feel like, yeah, I guess my thesis there is that I feel like society more values the end goal or the result as opposed to what you said earlier, which is it's all about the journey, right? It's not necessarily about.
Yeah, that's what we were talking. And it's hard to see. It's hard to see evidence of personal growth.
Right.
What you were talking about, it's like physical evidence. You can see, you can touch. You can tell people, look at that. I did it. I achieved. I'm a badass. But then when it comes to personal development, you're like, yeah, I learned how to process my triggers. I'm learning how to process emotions. And people are like, huh? You're learning to process emotions? Okay, great for
They're
you.
like, I don't eat processed food.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, what do you mean emotions? I think we are talking about also self-identity. We are also talking about confidence. We are talking about, so what are the things that I'm proud of, right? And that I want to be seen as, that I want to be respected for. And in my case, you are giving me this opportunity to say, I do want to be respected for the work I put in. I do want to be respected for the vulnerability of holding the space to, for example, one of the emotions that I had to learn to feel is sadness. I'm a people pleaser, so I like to make people feel good. I like to make people feel warm. But then I'm like, oh my God, I'm carrying sadness. Oh my God, I'm going to have to feel this sadness. And, maybe because of my life history, maybe because my parents got divorced and I was raised by, my stepdad and my mom's second family. Maybe I didn't have my own space. Maybe I was abused sexually when I was a kid. And then, so that's kind of where the sadness comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the good news I want to focus here is not on the life history and the trauma itself. It's more like the moment that I allowed myself to feel the sadness, it led to an action that felt different. So I felt the sadness, and then 2-3 days, I don't know, like sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks, I don't know. And then at some point I get to a new thinking. And that new thinking leads to a new action that wasn't available before I decided to feel the emotion. So that to me is very exciting. That to me is it's what makes emotional processing very important, because when I face this challenging emotion that I resist, why? Because I want to be seen as a happy, uplifting, spiritual guy. But then I have sadness inside me. And what do? I don't want to show this to people, right? And but also hiding is not an option, because and then I might be triggered in relationships, and then I might show this side that I hide. So being specific, I'm inspired by this emotional processing work. It's been offering me a lot of it has offered me a new path, meaning, so for example, right here, I could try to make you like me, or I could sit with me and try to like me. I can spend a lot of energy making Thomas liking me, or I can take a pause and say, no, but how do I like me without needing Thomas' approval? That to me, it's part of the emotional processing.
Wow. Yeah. That's very profound.
Yeah. It's, I mean,
I like you. You're such a cool guy.
Take me a break now. Let me see if I like myself. Yeah, let me look in the mirror, and then I'll tell you what do I think. But thank you for that. I appreciate the feedback, and I take it as a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is, if my sense of identity comes from your recognition of who I am, to me, there's something off there. There's a codependency. There is, some lack of something, and so I'm attributing emotional processing as a way to kind of learn to take care of yourself. That's also what we were talking before we started the show here, is that how does one learn to take care?
For sure. But it's interesting because I've also heard you say that you want recognition for your self-work. So perhaps because you're aware of the pitfalls of others' approval, you haven't shared as much about the self-work you're doing, because you're learning, I shouldn't get approval from others. So maybe you're not sharing enough actually on this stuff, because there is a balance. We do need others' approval, and not in a superficial way, but truly from like a friend. Like I can say, man, like I am proud of you.
Thank you.
And it's a beautiful thing, and I see you're taking it, and that's awesome. Because like I think about when I met you last August to now, I don't think you would have sat down to do this a year ago.
No. maybe 3 months ago I wouldn't either.
Right. And so that's beautiful, man. That's growth. So I guess just my observation is like, maybe on this stuff, it's okay to share and get that approval too, because it has been hard work, and you deserve to be recognized for it.
Yes, and yes. Thank you. So I think I have 2 points here.
Mm-hmm.
Number one has to do with the environment. So I've been living in San Francisco for 4 years, and I can joke about the woo-woo culture, about being esoteric and being into personal development and being and having a life coach and doing all like types of healings available. Like I've tried many things, and so at first I'm talking about the environment. So I have seen benefits from being in San Francisco Bay Area and seeing that people do value emotional growth, and that's kind of something that I really like about here. So let's pause there. And then, if I'm really honest with you, what I really wanted to show people is what they expect from me. So, for example, what people from Brazil expect from me, they expect me to have a big house and to host parties and to have 3 cars and to travel to Europe every summer. And so materialistic social status achievements, like that's what I would love to give them. And then where I'm at right now, that's not the case. So for me to create the confidence that I don't have yet the money or the materialistic things, the material things that will give me this validation, it's a very new approach. Wait a second. I don't drive a Porsche, but I'm in touch with my emotions. So what do I want? You know what I mean?
Totally.
And so it's recently, it's a recent shift, this one in which I decided to, for example, stop victimizing myself and be okay with where I'm at and see the benefit of having chosen to look for the dark that it's in me, the things that, because at the end of the day, the things that I don't process, they are the ones blocking my life, right? Because there are patterns that repeat. So I have a pattern, for example, of slamming doors. So, for example, I have a hard time to put boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I get sick and I explode because I get so sick of a dynamic. So now I'm very aware of that. And now I think, all right, like I'm telling you today. So today I was asking for help. I was like, hey, can you please help me talk to that person?
Yeah.
I need help here, please. And so that to me is growth. So for who is listening and I'm having a challenge with somebody and I don't know how to, have a clear communication with this person. So I invited a third person to maybe serve as a mediator and try to, make us come to maybe an agreement. And so to me, I see that as growth. So I'm not slamming the door. I'm asking for help. Please help me talk to this person, because if I go there with what I'm feeling, it's not going to go well. So
totally. Yeah, that absolutely. And I think that's one of the simple things that men can learn how to do is ask for help and say, I'm not okay, instead of letting it boil up. And, it's a hard truth, but men commit suicide at a rate exponentially higher than women. And it's a bit of a correlation, or rather a jump to say it's because women are better communicators and can ask for help and men can't. But to me, that makes a lot of sense in the sense of, in the extreme examples of letting something build up and not ask for help and not release and not get help with that. That's what can happen,
Yes.
And I'm actually reading a book, going to have Dr. Christian Heim on the pod in a few weeks, and he wrote a book, 5 Steps to Men's Mental Health. And something really interesting he said was that, for someone to complete their suicide and actually to do it is rare. However, suicidal thoughts are not rare. And that is a very sobering thing and gives me motivation to keep conversations like this going, because there will be someone listening right now who is potentially suicidal. That's just a fact of life.
It's the nature of being alive. Sure, yeah. I get it.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. And men, I feel like if more men could just ask for help and say, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, my world is shrinking, and I'm scared. Like, you can say that. You can say that there are people who are going to help you, and so it kind of gets back to this nature of the various avenues of improvement that are possible for people. But yeah, man, I totally agree, asking for help. I think the flip side of that too is being able to say, I'm sorry, and admit for me, like, when I'm wrong, and owning that, and just having to sit there and sit with that of being, I messed up, I hurt this person, whatever the circumstance is another, for me, has been a big kind of growth avenue. Yeah.
To take ownership of how you impact people.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, I'm processing here what you just said about suicide and I lost a cousin. He killed himself. I was 17 years old. He was 18. I woke up and he had killed himself. And that's actually part of the reason why I started to songwrite, because that's how I found healing. It was through writing and kind of connecting with these emotions that I was feeling and recreate maybe memories, in a relationship with this person that is now gone. So I give a lot of importance to what you're saying. And I think that, so for example, the benefits of Bay Area men's group, I've joined men's groups and so, very interesting work to be present with other men that are also doing their work, that are also, processing whatever but the reason why I'm saying men's work is an example of how we as men can hold space so that we can be vulnerable and we can share ourselves authentically and go to the issue and etc. But I think my counter is how to find these communities, how to find the friend that is actually going to be able to hear you without dismissing your suffering or without dismissing your challenge. Personally, despite the work that I've been doing, I'm still kind of looking for relationships that I can be real, that I can be, and that I can also expect them to be real with me. It comes to, if I'm sharing myself to somebody, to Thomas, I'm sharing myself to you, and then you share yourself to me, right? And then we create a bond, we create a trust. Oh, I can be vulnerable with Thomas and he's going to listen to me, right? I think like that's very important, because it's not every friendship. It's not the buddy that I'm having, that I'm drinking beers. Maybe that's not going to be the buddy that I'm taking a puff with. I don't know. The guy, my workout buddy, I don't know who you're trying to share yourself with. In my experience, I am always looking for people that can, listen to me and not dismiss what I'm saying, but also, yeah. So I crave to be understood, understood and acknowledged, heard. These
heard.
three things. I want to be heard, I want to be understood, and I want to be acknowledged. And I navigate towards relationships that offer this to me, and what I'm trying to reflect here is to, like, in this with this. Since I moved from Brazil, I moved away from many friends, right? Friends that I thought that they were, my friends forever, my friends for life.
Yeah.
Some of them I have never talked in 9 years, maybe 10 years. I haven't really had a conversation with them.
Wow.
So that really impacted me, Thomas. I was like, wow. So because my decisions are leading me, right? Like moving countries and trying new things and improving myself. Like they took me away from people that I used to share myself. And within this journey, I found new people. So I think I'm trying to create an encouragement for people who might wanna, have a deeper conversation. If I'm very honest, maybe it's not with the people that you know now. Maybe it's with people that you're gonna get to know. Maybe it's people that are gonna show up in your life and
you can manifest.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't trust my party friends. I'm not judging party people. I'm just saying I don't know if if warming up to go out, it's the right timing for me to be vulnerable and to say, hey guys, actually I'm going through something. Well, let's take a shot and let's go out. You know what I mean? So
absolutely, man, dude. Yeah, I was in an environment. My buddy played a gig the other night, and I went to support him.
Mm-hmm.
And the vibe of the crowd, it reminded me of being back in college, and not in a good way. Oh. It was very like, and like it was music and it was art, but just the energy in the crowd, it felt like I was at like a frat party, as you have heard of, I'm sure, through the American culture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I was like, this does not feel good to me. I was like, and I saw some friends I know, and I know that, like, yeah, the thing was I was there alone too. Oh, and that was a new experience for me recently. I haven't gone to anything by myself in a while, and not really know. Like, I knew Jack, my buddy Jack, who was performing, but I didn't know anyone in the crowd. And it just felt like I was like, oh yeah, like this is kind of like I've moved my life away from this intentionally,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because it didn't serve me, man. Yeah, and
so let me see if I heard you.
Okay.
So I think what we are talking about here is that sometimes to have a deeper conversation, alcohol might not be a good fit.
Yes, and I'm sure that individually there were people in that crowd who are self-aware and who care about, who are on the same kind of wavelength we are. But something about that night and that space with that group of people, it was kind of like unabashedly, hedonistic isn't the right word. I don't know. Cause like I can go in a similar environment, say like with my rugby team, and none of us are on the self-improvement conversation. Like it's still a party, but it just feels more like, I don't know, maybe it's more just like I'd rather be in that kind of environment with people I'm aligned with, maybe is what I'm saying.
I see. To have your own crew, like your own group of friends.
Yes, because I know, like with my rugby guys, I know we're being silly and we're having fun, but I know if anything bad happens or I do have a breakdown or whatever the heck happens, like they have my back. Being in that space, I didn't really know anyone, and I was like, I don't trust you fucking people.
Yeah.
And so like, why would I let my guard down? Why would I be vulnerable? You know what I mean?
Thomas, as we're talking here, I'm having this thought, which is like one of the things that I most appreciate in what we're doing here, as far as seeing the benefits of vulnerability and sharing yourself authentically and things like that. So for a long time, man, I saw that as something that I wasn't really proud of it, because like I could be sounding maybe needy, I could be sounding insecure, I could be sounding, what I'm saying is I used to share much more with people that I shouldn't be sharing.
Right.
Okay. And within this practice of talking with people, I started, I would leave the interaction the opposite of nurtured. I would be, I would be like, wait a second, I'm sharing myself vulnerably here, authentically here, and then at the end of the conversation, I'm feeling worse. And it's not a good feeling, because you are taking a risk to share yourself authentically. You're taking a risk to reveal something about yourself that people don't see firsthand. And then sometimes it's not a good turnout. And so for a long time, I had this self-criticism, this self-judgment that like, maybe I'm too needy. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Like, and that's not a good feeling, right? Like, oh my God, I wanna. And so fast forward, I learned that, I was trying so hard because my biggest need, as we said before, is to be heard, is to be understood, is to be acknowledged. That's the need I have. Okay? But not anyone. So I found relationships that offer me that. And those ones I hold to my heart, like these are my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
If I call somebody and I start opening my heart and the person listens for 30 minutes and bounces back with like, hey dude, I heard you, you're not alone. I also deal with that. Like, I feel it's life changing. It's like, whoa. So I'm not crazy. So maybe I'm not that sensitive. So maybe I'm not complicated. Maybe there's nothing wrong with me. I really need people who get me, to listen to what I'm saying. And so most recently that's been the case. Right here in our conversation, this is happening right now. And then I feel validated, and then I feel confident. And then I'm like, so there is value in being a man who does self-work. So there is value in a man who is in tune with their emotions. So there is value in being a man who it's okay making mistakes. Because like when I look at this, subject of toxic masculinity, like these are the things that I don't see. And sometimes you see that in women. I'm sorry, but sometimes I see that in women.
Totally.
So so I'm inspired by the conversation that we as men, it's okay for us to be needy, to be fragile, to be vulnerable. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And there's so much
to be human.
And there's so much beauty on that. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about these things, Thomas. So I think I'm thanking you for this conversation, because at the end of the day, I showed up here today, of course, to connect with you and to share ideas. But what I'm getting from our conversation is that it's an important thing to be there for our friends, like for our male friends who need it. But I don't know, man, because like I think what I'm also saying is that my self-judgment tells me that I shouldn't be vulnerable. I shouldn't be too emotional. Like I'm losing time doing that. I'm losing focus doing that. But I don't think that's the case. I think you know,
for sure. So we'll pivot over to the three things game because after this, but parting thoughts on that. I agree. I feel you. I see you and I hear you and I acknowledge you, my friend.
Thank you.
Of course. And what I tell myself about this stuff and being vulnerable and putting my name behind this program and drowning my friends in this stuff constantly is because I truly believe that in order for me to grow into the person I'm meant to be, I have to do this. And if I don't do this, for me personally, I will be a shadow or a mere imitation of what I could become as a person, as an individual. And the scale of people I'll impact will be minuscule compared to who I could impact. And I think if there's someone else out there who this is their path, conversation, connecting with people, asking questions, listening, like if someone doesn't get exposed to this kind of stuff and it's their path too, then it's such a waste. So for me, that's kind of how I validate it internally and how I get over my own blockers with it, if that makes sense. Because I have self-consciousness, man. Like, dude, this whole thing is like my fucking name, you know? I'm like doing it, you know? And this is my plan. Like, this is my plan to make this my business and make this my career. So that's got a big step, you know? But it's because I believe in it. And I think it's important. And yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
Cool, man. I what I'm also hearing is that you are supporting your community by creating a space where people can talk about these things. And I totally navigate towards that. That's why I'm here today, you know, because I value this type of conversation. I value finding other men that are willing to show what they're going through, you know. So I'm the type of person that will definitely have more fun sitting at a coffee shop and talking about, you know, and hearing what you're going through than, I don't know, sitting having you know, I would rather have a coffee with somebody who is going through like some emotional challenges than sit and have a Chardonnay in the afternoon and talk about a game, you know. I don't want to do that. The second, that's not my choice.
For sure, man. I do both. If it's rugby,
it's fine.
If it's rugby, I'll do that shit all day. But no, I completely agree with you. All right, man. What month is your birthday in?
July.
Okay, so you're up first. Here's your question.
Okay, so the question is, what are the three things you have learned about commitment? Wow. The first answer is, the first thing I learned about commitment is that once you commit, for example, to growth, I don't think there's a way back. Meaning, commitment, it's perseverance, is kind of like trusting that your path is exactly what you should be doing. And so the commitment I see here is like, the commitment is not the end goal. The commitment is the journey. So I'm very committed, for example, to develop myself emotionally and to develop myself. But what's the end goal of somebody who is emotionally, I don't know, mature? Maybe that's the word to use here. But, you know, it's kind of a hard thing. You can't really touch it. You can't really, you know, so perseverance, like I see that as I'm committed to, for example, become a better self, a better version of myself. And I don't know how does that look like. And commitment is to go through the darkness that it's going to show up. And it does show up. And I think that's also another, for example, way of looking to why talk about these things. It's so important because, as I said earlier, when you start processing an emotion that is hard, it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. So commitment means, despite the challenge, despite the darkness, it's to keep going. And then eventually you start getting like new bites of new thoughts, new ways of thinking. And that's so inspiring. So commitment is to make sure that you're going to face the lows. And eventually you're going to go up. And then you're going to go low again. But then you are more... Yeah, so that's the first one. Secondly, here's a good one for us. So I'm a musician. I'm a recording artist. And I'm very committed to my music. But what I have learned about it is that my commitment is with my artistic voice. My commitment is with it's with my art and not with what people think about my music. So my commitment is with my music, is not with making people like my music. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
That's huge, man. Like the moment that I decided to see my commitment with the message I'm creating, the legacy I want to leave behind, because, that's kind of what inspires me to songwrite. It's like, wow, can you imagine when I'm 60 years old, look back to these songs, because they represent where I'm at. They represent what I'm going through. So commitment to me is also like commitment with my internal truth, my development, and not so much with, I'm committing with my artistic voice and not with how people perceive my music. So that's the second one. And the third one, I'm going to talk about family. I have always been very loyal to my family, very committed to play the role of a good son, of a good cousin, of a good now uncle. And this commitment had a cost that I'm no longer willing to pay. So I am committed to having a relationship with my family, but not at the cost of my individuality. So the commitment here in relation to my family is like I'm evolving this relationship with my family, and so the commitment I have here is like, how can I respect who I am and still have a relationship with my family, not the other way around. Like, for me, because where I'm coming from is, for me to have a relationship with my family, it costs my individuality. So my commitment is to flip that coin and to commit with who I am, not with who they expect me to be.
So if I'm hearing you on that last one, it sounds like you learned that commitment is only worth it if it's on your terms, in the sense of you grew up with this understood, unstated perhaps agreement with your family. It's like, Pedro, you're going to be part of the family, but it's on these terms.
That's exactly true.
And that's what you committed to, maybe subconsciously, maybe no one ever wrote that down, but that was understood. And now you learned, actually, fuck that.
True.
I'm not going to commit to things I didn't sign up for anymore, or
that don't serve
that don't serve me, even if it's my family.
Correct.
That's a massive thing, because you're such a warm-hearted person. Like I have buddies who have riffs with their family, and they don't. But it's not like I don't know. I think that some people can just make that cut, and it doesn't really like get them deeply. But, you are such a warm-hearted, generous
you.
person. Like,
Thank you.
I know that must be a real thing.
I deal with that every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Every day I wish that I had a relationship with my mom, for example. But also, I don't want to have a relationship with her in the terms that she wants to. Well, but I want to give context, because I think what you said was very spot on. So here's a context. Part of this family started to tell me that I should come back to Brazil because I was a failure in the US, because I hadn't made the money I should, because I didn't accumulate material things. I don't have like belongings or whatever. And man, that was really hard to hear. So wait a second. Are you saying that my success, in your view, means me having status quo? And I can answer yes. That's what they were telling me. Yes, you have, like, for us to respect you, you need status quo. That was the message I heard from my family. And then I was like, wait a second. I value other things. I can't commit to an empty, superficial status quo. That's not who I am. Okay? To me, my sense of self doesn't come from the car I drive, but in a way, that's the value that it was imposed into me. So because I was telling about my mom, so I had to tell her, hey mom, listen, I reject these values. I'm so sorry, but that's not what I think it's important. And and then I had the opportunity to choose what my commitment is. So my commitment is with values that I think I don't need to overthink here. It's very basic. My value as a human being doesn't come from status quo. So my commitment here is to find new ways to understand what can I offer. You know what I mean? And so as I go about life and I meet people and I start meeting people that value other things as well. Like, I'm not saying money is not important. I love money. Of course, I want to have, a good life, stable, and be able to provide for my family. I'm not complaining about money. I'm not complaining. I'm complaining about lack of purpose. I'm complaining about lack of values. You know what I mean? Because if the goal is to keep up with the Joneses, thanks so much. I'm not up for that.
Well said.
But that's kind of like, I appreciate but I don't know, Thomas. But for example, and then I'm going to leave here as we finish this. I'm going to go out and, it can be materialistic, right? We are talking about one of the most expensive cities in the US, not to say in the world. So, the outside world, like what we see out there, might not match what I'm saying. And so thank you for acknowledging what I said, for putting, a positive reinforcement on this thought, because I think that as we go on in our lives, I think that we are still expected to fill out, to do things that that it's our choice, it's our commitment. Like what are you, what it's freeing, what it's liberating about creating your own values. It's because you can create your own sense of importance. You can create your own sense of what is important to me. And sometimes what is important to you is different than what is important to your group of friends. Then it's different than what it's important to. And what I found is that it's really important. I found what things I value. I value art. I value art expression. I value deep conversations. I value compassion. I value support, mutual support. I value, good living. Like I value sun. I value water. And then like, okay, great. These are the things I value. But there's one thing that we didn't say, that we didn't talk here. And I just want to touch real quick before we go. It's like sometimes I don't feel safe to be happy. Sometimes I don't feel safe to do the things I want, that I know that will give me joy. And this is a very, to me, it's the one challenge I still have in my personal development, is to find ways to feel safe, to allow myself to be happy, to allow myself to do the things that I like doing. Because if I'm really honest to you, I think I'm, since we started talking here, I saw myself as somebody who had delivered, right? Like, yeah, I am emotional in tune. Yeah, I am this and that. But in fact, I'm doing work, because like, it's still a challenge for me to allow myself to do the things I like. Because in a way, even though I'm saying all these things about commitment having to do with my personal values and not with what is expected, but I'm still impacted by not meeting those expectations. There's part of me that it's still ashamed and guilty for not doing what my parents expected from me. And so that's where I'm at, my friend. I'm really wanting to learn how to take care of me and find safety, emotional and physical, to have fun. Because I think as an immigrant and as somebody who is away from my family, I don't know who to look up to when I need protection. So for me to educate myself that I'm my protector, my brother, this is one of the biggest, this is one of the biggest lessons of my incarnation, is to how do I feel safe? Seriously, how do I feel safe to navigate life?
Mm.
And trust myself that I'm able to protect me, that I'm able to take care of me, that I'm able to provide for me, and to be continued. I think I will overcome, but I'm just being very vulnerable and honest here, that I don't want to show up here in this, on this podcast, like with this sense that like, hey guys, look what a badass I am. I've done all of this and now I'm in great shape. No, it's like I'm doing a lot of work. I'm appreciating the positive feedback of the work I'm doing, but I still have big issues to break down. And one of them is it's safety, emotional safety, physical safety. And this one is like,
it's a big one.
It is.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. And you shared a lot, so thank you so much, man, for your vulnerability and your honesty.
Absolutely.
I got my question too.
Go ahead,
if I may.
Please. Yes, you may.
All right. What are 3 things I've learned about passion? I'm a very passionate person, and I am learning, number one, as I get older, that passion can start the fire, but I don't think it can keep the fire going, in the sense of a relationship or a pursuit. Like this podcast, for example, like I'm loving it right now. And I'm saying all this stuff about my goals for it. Some days that passion isn't going to be there. And it's going to be something else that has to take over if I'm going to continue to follow through on my commitments, right? So I'm saying that passion can be fickle in a sense. So I guess maybe number 2 would be, I want to learn how to identify the difference between passion and something deeper or something more sustainable. Because for me, I can kind of get distracted. I have long-term passions like my rugby, for example. Like that's like in my blood at this point. But I've also had 100 other passions that I've dropped and I haven't stuck with. And my friends who know me for a long time will laugh at themselves right now because, you know, that's the thing. So I guess the third lesson is that despite that passion can be kind of fickle and come and go, I would still so much rather have a life of things that excite me and motivate me and I'm passionate about than just to be like meh about life. Sometimes you meet people who are indifferent about this life, man. It like upsets me in the sense of like, what a waste. What a waste of a gift, you know, this person's been given. They're squandering. You know what I mean? Especially here in the U.S., especially if they're American, honestly. It's like we were born, Americans, in this place of opportunity, and everywhere else around the world, people literally leave their families to come here for a better life and a better future.
True.
And you're going to fucking waste that? Get out of my face. So anyway, that question got me passionate about that. But yeah, man, it's like, you could fucking do something with your life. What are you going to do with it? You know, not you personally, but
no, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, I just feel the need to say this one last thing here. To respect people for where they are at. Right. I hear you. I hear what you said.
Yeah.
It's just that I am really doing my best, Thomas, to learn how to accept people for who they are, despite of how they make me feel. And if I can respect one for who he is. And that doesn't mean I have to approve or disapprove. It just means accept, right? I see a lot of power there because we never know what people are going through. So I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I also think that, you know, it's important to get out of your way. I also think that it's important to find, you know, I mean, I'm also agree with the passionate thing. It's just that sometimes we pressure ourselves to do, and that coming back to the safety bit I was doing. So part of what one of my like great lessons, it's that it doesn't work for me to pressure myself to do what I'm unsafe doing. So I think that's what I heard there. I wanted to make this exception.
Yeah.
Of course, people should be passionate about, but if you're fucking scared of doing something, it's okay not to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because to push yourself to do what you were afraid of, it's a very bad quality of life. It's a bad quality of life. Like,
there's growth there, though. But yeah, I agree, man. I also like. I don't go around yelling at strangers to be like,
no, sure, yeah, you should be passionate.
Yeah,
no,
yeah. It's more like like with my close friends and like people who get close to me. I demand a lot of them, and I expect them to hold me to a high standard too. That's my style of friendship, and not everyone can hang with that. I heard you. All right, we have to end this recording. Peter, Pedro, thank you so much for your time, man. We'll keep talking. Where do you want to send anyone to your music? Where can they find you?
PeterPedro.com. It's the website. Also Peter Pedro on Spotify. Look for Astral Jam. It's my latest single. I have a new song coming up soon. I'm still figuring out the promotion. But Peter Pedro on Instagram is I am Peter Pedro, and I will let you know when I'm about to release new music, and then maybe we can have some fun.
Hell yeah, man! Thank you so much for your time, dude.
Thanks.
Well said, and thank you for opening your heart to me and the people listening.
Thank you for the opportunity to share.